growth hacking your wealth, how business owners can build high net worth. Welcome to Biz Bites for thought leaders, where we're going to deliver some more actionable insights to help you grow your business and influence. I'm Anthony Pearl, your host, and I'm joined today by Greg Cassar, who is a renowned growth hacker. That's right, a growth hacker. He's the founder of the Collective Mastermind, and he's helped countless business owners scale their companies and transition into high net worth individuals through his dual black belt approach. Stand by for that one. And his approach to business is not just about mentoring in that way, it's also about investing. So it's an episode you don't want to miss. You're going to discover how to leverage AI and blockchain technologies for wealth creation, how to build multiple income streams for financial freedom, and design a business that gives your life back. So as we dive into this episode of Biz Bites for thought leaders, make sure you have pen and paper in hand. There are so many tips in this episode, you do not want to miss it. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biz Bites for thought leaders. And I truly have someone who is going to dazzle. I have no doubt. We've just had a brief conversation off air, and I'm so looking forward to this and unraveling so many things that Greg has to bring to the party. But Greg, firstly, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, look, why don't you start off by introducing yourself to everyone?
Sounds good. Like most people know me, so I'm Greg Cassar. Most people know me as a marketer. I'm a growth hacker, so I'm very good at scaling businesses. It's been my background and technology, but in more recent years, I got good at investing and then been helping other people to do that, and it's really been life-changing. Some people would say, I've got lucky, but I think luck is labor under correct knowledge. You kind of engineer that, to happen yourself. So as a result of getting good at cash flow with businesses and then building large nest eggs, I was able to figure out where I wanted to live in life and how I wanted to live. And so I moved to Byron Bay and I surf every day and that kind of thing. And so designed a pretty cool lifestyle that works as a long-term, great work-life balance as a result.
I love that term, growth hacker. It sounds good.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the first challenge is, though, it's one thing to do it for yourself. It's another thing to do it for other people. So how difficult was that transition?
Because I was running an agency first, I was in a day job. Actually, what happened was I was designing computer networks for banks and insurance companies, that kind of thing. My client, who was a large steel manufacturer, they came to me and they said, "Hey, we want to put in these large array of discs." I realized that it wasn't going to work for them and they were going to run out within 6 months. So I did this upsell. I was studying sales and marketing. I did an upsell for them and made my company that I was working for in my day job an extra $1 million. And they said, "You're going to go far in this company. You're going to be rewarded." And I thought it's either a car or a promotion or something like that. But what happened was they gave me a $200 Maya gift voucher as a result for making them an extra $1 million. And I was gutted at the time, and my wife went and spent it on clothes and stuff at the shop. But I realized, sometimes life happened for you, not to you. And that was exactly the motivation I needed to get out of the day job. And I ran a marketing agency. And so to your question, like I got experience working in a whole bunch of other people's businesses as well as my own businesses. And so it was a great, in a way, getting paid to learn when I was young, and then just went on from there to running an agency, then being a coach as well. I've got two businesses in the e-com space, travel deals, based out of the US with 3 business partners. And that and investing are kind of the main things that I do now. So
It's a big shift, and I know someone else, who's been in the marketing space and run a marketing agency for many years. What's interesting about that space is there aren't many people who still say, I run a marketing agency. Everyone used to run a marketing agency because it's all adapted, right? It's become so much more specialized than it was. That generalist marketing agency approach is very difficult to sustain over a longer period of time because it has become niched.
agreed. I think there's so much to know in that space. Also, from a work-life balance and just I call it the coolness factor. in work and in business. Coolness factor equals income divided by stress. And with a marketing agency, say you were my client, every time we had a meeting, I would walk away with a whole bunch of jobs. Whereas if we were a coach, I was your coach, then you would walk away with the jobs, and then we would meet back and see how you're going on them. So it's a little thing, but it's a big thing. So I think a marketing agency is a great business to run as a stepping stone into other better business models. But, and I know you've done it as well with the agent on the agency front. It really is an amazing learning environment because you get to see a broad spectrum of businesses that you wouldn't normally see just on your own.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. And we were talking off air beforehand about the fact that, my background was in the media. And what's really interesting about when I worked in the media, it's so different to working in an agency environment, because what happens in the media is you walk in and you start your shift. And particularly if you're working in a newsroom, you have a certain amount of stories that you have to write that have to go to air by a certain time, like on the dot to the second. And then once that news bulletin is done, you're then working towards the next one. And whether it's a program or a news bulletin, it's pretty similar. So you walk away at the end of the day where stuff is done, and you start almost with a clean slate for the next day. Sometimes if you're running a show, it might be preparing for an interview or something that's coming up, but there's this real definitive line of things that happen and come in and out. Whereas when you start working, not just in an agency, but in most work environments, there are things that take long periods of time, sometimes months, sometimes years.
Yeah.
There are things that drag from day to day and priorities shift on a daily basis because this comes in and that comes in. It's a really quite different to that media environment.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting what you're doing with your new business, and we both were agency and then now have morphed out of it. So shows the progression.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's talk a little bit more about that morphing out of it. I mean, how did that come about then, that you started realizing the need to invest and to do more beyond what the agency was giving you?
Yeah, sometimes like to know and not to do is not to know. So like I all along knew that I was a business owner and I should be investing. And I saw my superannuation and it was growing at like 10% a year. But then I realized, hang on a second, the inflation's a couple of percent, and then I had a couple of percent fees. So it was actually growing at 3% a year, not 10 when I really got down to it. And so for like a 10 or 12 year period there, I was going nowhere. And that was kind of like a big aha that I needed to do something smarter. So I started, I've got this concept of the dual black belt. So get your black belt at business, sales, marketing. So get good at that side, and then also focus on getting a black belt in investing. And for me, the real turning point was in 2017. I'd been started to learn about Bitcoin. And I remember just waking up in the middle of the night, like 3:17 a.m. I still remember seeing it on the clock. And I was just like, I've just really understood Bitcoin, the digital gold concept, and the fact that there was a maximum supply of 21 million and the demand was only going to get bigger, and that it would effectively, by buying that asset, it was just going to keep appreciating effectively forever. And so that was a life-changing thing for me. I woke my wife up. To say she wasn't as excited about it as me was an understatement, I would say. But yeah, from that point onwards, that was a real changing point in my life. And as an investor and as an entrepreneur, like you'll hear someone who's not very wealthy, they'll say you need to be diversified into a whole bunch of different asset classes and all this sort of thing. But all my high net worth friends, they all say the same thing as far as like there's certain times in your career, whether it's in business or investing, where you just have to back yourself and push all your chips in and go for it. And for me, that was with Bitcoin, and I did that in 2017. And I'd love to say it was an easy journey, but it wasn't. Like sometimes I was really up and sometimes I was really down, but I had that conviction and that knowledge and that understanding. And I knew that one Bitcoin was going to end up multiple millions of dollars, and I was getting them for, $8,000, $14,000, $19,000, that kind of thing. So I kind of backed up the truck and went hard at it, and yeah, and then turned a small amount of money into a large amount of money, into multiple millions, really over a couple of years. So it's been a crazy journey, and then from there started helping others with that as well. Primarily people come to me like with the Collective Masterminders who are business owners who want to grow their business, because that's been my background. But in more recent years, I've been more helping people with, okay, well, then they might have a normal superannuation. What about if you change that over to superannuation to an SMSF? And then there's how do you then make it grow so that it grows at 30 or 40% instead of that 10 or 12%? And one key thing there was the whole concept of do you know who Wayne Gretzky is, Anthony? The
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
so the skate. So basically, I think you know it, but for those who don't know it, the Wayne Gretzky, he is a famous ice hockey player, and he was getting interviewed, and they said, like, why are you the best? And he said, it's easy because everyone else skates to where the puck is, and I skate to where the puck is going. And because I understood technology really well, I was able to see technology trends that were happening before the masses. So with blockchain, so things like Bitcoin, etc., and then also now like the dot-com boom is effectively happening all over again, but it's an AI and blockchain boom. And so by understanding what are the winning technologies, I've been able to invest in those things and then really ride them up at, 20, 30, 40, and sometimes 50% growth instead of what most people are getting 8, 9, 10s. And if you compound year after year, that can really, really make a difference, I've found.
I'm going to come back to the AI thing in a moment, but it'd be remiss of me not to ask then saying, okay, where is the next big thing? If AI is we're in it at the moment,
Yes.
is there another thing that's on the back of that?
I would say that this AI boom, like over the next 5 to 10 years, between AI and blockchain crypto, there is a massive, massive opportunity for wealth creation. So on the blockchain side, there's things like Bitcoin, obviously we spoke about, which is digital gold. And then there's it's really just about figuring out, hey, what are the winners? And so there's technologies like Solana, which is a layer one blockchain, which basically, if you think about it, so many other financial apps are getting built on top of it, and it does 80% of the compute uh, that compared to all the other blockchains. So that's an example of a winner. But then in the AI side, you've got things like Nvidia, which is they do make 80% of the GPUs, so the chips that power AI, the brains behind AI, you've got things like that. Then there's other companies like Tesla, who's really leading the world in real world AI. So if you think about a modern Tesla car, if it can navigate around on its own, it's effectively like a robot that drives. And then you've got things like robo taxis, which have just come out this year, and it's like an Uber but no driver and one third of the cost. And then next year you've got things like the Optimus humanoid robot coming out, and so that's an example of a real world AI company that is just going to multiply over and over and over again. So that's what I mean by just figuring out, hey, who are likely to be the winners in those two different categories, and then playing the long game, knowing that, hey, sometimes I'm going to be really up and then there's going to be some adjustments, and that's okay. And then just removing all emotion from it, and then just really, really playing the long game and doing it in both personal as well as then doing it in SMSF as well. So you can get both growing over time.
I guess for those who are not familiar with it, SMSF, self-managed super
Yes,
funds,
self-managed super
and
fund.
if you're not in Australia, I suppose the best way, I don't know that it exists everywhere like this, but it's basically a percentage of your earnings that needs to be put away into a fund that is going to only be available to you once you retire.
Agreed.
That's probably the simple way of explaining it to people who may not be familiar with what superannuation is, who are listening in.
A
But
401k that you manage yourself. Yes, for
yes,
the American.
exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that one of the interesting points that you made about the Wayne Gretzky reference, and it's how do you know where things are going? Is that an instinct for you, or is that something that requires a lot of study and talking to? And how do you come up with where you think things are going?
Once you get good at this kind of tech investing, it really becomes like cheating in a way. So I spend an hour a day researching and learning and just investing in myself. So that's kind of like the first piece of the puzzle. And then history also tells stories. So I'll look at like what are the highest producing, highest growth assets over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years, over the last 4 years. And then out of those, what of them are really positioned well? They've got a roadmap of things that are coming out that are, that are very, very exciting. Another is simple area for people to focus on is like the Magnificent Seven. So, which then has your Microsofts and Meta, so which is Facebook and Amazon, etc. Because those tech stocks that are very AI enabled, effectively they're going to win over and over again because they've just got such a competitive advantage over smaller companies now. So that's where I think investing just gets very, very easy once you get kind of a high degree of skill in it. And it literally is life changing.
Yeah, I can imagine, and but it's starting off is scary, right? That's
Agree.
the hard part is knowing what's the right amount to invest in and how much you trust yourself. Because early on in the piece, you don't have that knowledge, and so it is a big leap to make initially.
Yes, for sure. And I think that all starts with that education. And they say only invest what you can afford to lose, like initially while you're learning. And that's certainly what I did. And then once I had great certainty and I knew what was going on, that was kind of like when I then really, really moved forward in with bigger numbers. And I think another point that makes a difference is like I was at the surf 2 days ago, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Greg, I was thinking about you this morning." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Well, didn't know what he was talking about. And apparently, we've been talking at a party and I taught him a few things. And he'd bought some Bitcoin and some other things, but he'd never invested again. And he said, I doubled my money. And I said, "Did you keep investing? Did you keep putting money in?" He's like, "No, no, I didn't. Just that one time." And so, like, he didn't realize to keep going. I've got a friend who we had both put the same amount of money in initially, but he never put any in again. And then I kept what's called dollar cost averaging. Dollar cost averaging means that you don't know necessarily when the top of a market cycle is or when the bottom of the market cycle is. You just keep buying regular buys over time, and you'll get some of it right and some of it wrong, but it really starts to build up like an exponential curve. If you've got these high growth, whether it's stocks and crypto, etc., and then you'll keep feeding it what I call feeding the beast, it can really, really make a difference, because there's a difference between the way that the rich think and the way that the poor and the middle class think and behave. So the poor and the middle class, what they'll do is they'll earn money. So say, for example, a hypothetical $1,000, they'll spend, and if there's anything left, they'll invest, say, $50 or whatever, if that, sort of thing. But whereas what the rich will do is the rich will pay themselves first, and so invest. So out of that 1,000, they might figure out, hey, I can invest 100 of it, or I can invest 150 of it, and then I'll get by on the 850 to pay my bills and everything. But they invest before they pay the bills. It sounds like it's only a small change, but it's one of those small hinges that swings a big door. If you can do that continuously over time and you're willing to think, see, I think in 8 year cycles and 12-year cycles and that kind of thing, because that's really like everyone wants to get rich today. And I get that. And you still can, like at the moment we're in a bull market, you definitely can. But real wealth isn't built in 1 year. Real wealth is built by stringing together multiple cycles and also having a combination of, I think to get really wealthy, you need cash flow. So, like, that might be your businesses, and then you also need to build a high net worth, so like a golden goose that over time, when you want to, you can harvest from that golden goose, and as it grows, you're just eating the eggs without, kind of really eating away at it. And on the income side, I like to have multiple streams of income. I think of it like a multi-leg stool. So if I've just got one stream of income and then it dries up, then I could lose like all my cash flow. So I try to always have three or more cash flow sources so that that cash flow keeps ticking along, even if something a problem happens with one. I've got cash while I adjust, and then that gives me more cash to then. I used to think about, because I was good at business, I thought I'm going to use business to get rich, and that did work. Like I became a millionaire out of business, so that was good. But I didn't really have a path of like, well, how am I going to get my wealth into the high multiple millions or into the tens of millions or anything like that? Just business alone, like unless I built a business that I could exit, I couldn't really see a path to that. But whereas by doing a combination of B plus I, so business plus investing, I've found that has really been the path to building a higher net worth than 99 or whatever percent of people would achieve. But it's anyone can learn it and do it, I feel.
I was going to say there's so many questions out of here, but I want to start with one little basic one. There'll be people that are sitting there listening and kind of rolling their eyes when they hear Bitcoin and crypto
Yep.
and finding it all too hard to understand and thinking, oh, it's not real, it's all going to come crashing down. What do you say to those people who may be and it may just be ignorance, or it may be a genuine fear of it?
Yeah, I think often they haven't spent the time like to learn it. I I honestly believe everyone is going to need to learn about Bitcoin at some stage in their professional life. And the reason why is because every reserve currency of the world, back whether it was like in Roman times or whether it was English times when they were dominant, or right now it's been the US time, but every reserve currency of the world at some stage has dropped off. And what's happening right now is you've got all the governments, nearly all the governments of the world are broke. So the Australian government has like roughly $1.3 trillion worth of debt. That means that they've spent $1.3 trillion more than they've earned. So that's like you going crazy on your credit card and then having to use more credit cards to pay it off. The US government is $27 trillion. And so it's such a big number now that they have no way of ever paying it off. So they just print money to keep paying their debt. But what happens is if governments keep printing money forever, then the real purchasing power of that money, it doesn't really store value like it used to. And so if you go to the grocery store with $200, you don't get as many groceries as you used to, or $500,000 for a house doesn't get you into a house anymore, that kind of thing. But that's with resources like paper money that's getting printed by governments. But then that's what you call soft money. If you then go to hard money resources like Bitcoin, because it has a limited supply of 21 million, it can never be changed, or gold could be considered similar because it's got a very limited supply. What happens with those sorts of resources is as the governments of the world print more and more money, those things keep going up and up in value and their purchasing power uh, goes greater and greater. So, say for example, if you go back 10 years ago, it might have cost 30,000 Bitcoin to be able to buy a house. And then right now it might be 3 or 4 Bitcoin to buy a house. And if you fast forward another 2 years, it might be zero point 0.4 Bitcoin to buy a house. So because of that limited supply, I think with Bitcoin, the way I look at it is it's just digital gold. It's got value because people want it. Okay. And then I look at, is the world going more digital or less digital? And the world is going more digital. And that's like like with the AI stuff, with the tech investing, is the world going more AI or less? That's the way I kind of think about it. And really, for the average person or the average business owner, it is the greatest opportunity, in my opinion, to build real wealth, because you're already working, you're doing your business, but if you just save it in cash, it's going down in real purchasing power over time. Whereas at least if you save it in Bitcoin, it's going up in real purchasing power over time. It's life changing once you understand it, but you've got to really spend the time to sort of go down that rabbit hole and learn it. But it's amazing. I'm very excited about it, but passionate about the subject.
I think it's quite refreshing actually to hear someone in business talking about it in the way that you are, and I think that's the interesting thing about it as well, is that it's been this thing that is sitting almost independent of business, it's felt like, but it's starting to integrate into businesses more and more, isn't it? I mean, the
Yes.
whole idea of utilizing the blockchain, and I don't think we're yet at the point where crypto is becoming a currency that people are using
No.
to pay for products and services. But there's going to be a time when that will happen.
Sure.
But certainly utilizing the technology behind it all, which is the blockchain, is becoming more and more advanced, and more businesses are getting involved at different levels.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't understand what a blockchain is as well. So, in its simplest form, if we think about it's effectively just a big digital ledger. So, imagine it's now 1900s, and I pull my ship into port and I sell to you bananas and I buy from you apples. That entry would go into a ledger, a logbook. So effectively, a blockchain is just a big ledger, but there's multiple nodes on the network, and they all have to verify, yes, this transaction is correct about sold this, bought that. And so traditional databases that, for example, Google has and Facebook has, etc., those become honeypots for hackers where it's a one centralized source and hackers go after it. And how many times have you seen this company lost your data, this company lost your data, that kind of thing? It happens all the time. But if you look at Bitcoin, it's the first technology in history that's never had a software update. Like, so if you think about Microsoft brings out a piece of code, they were patching it all the time to stop hackers. So Bitcoin is worth $2.2 trillion, something to that effect, and it's never been hacked. And the reason why is because the amount of power that it would take to hack it is ridiculous, like more than it takes to power New York City, sort of thing. And because every every node on the network has to verify, yes, that is a real transaction, and if they don't agree, then it doesn't, then it doesn't get written in. So the security of it is amazing. They call it getting orange pilled, and I just think even if you only got one thing out of our call here today, which was like just start learning more about that, because that one thing can unlock a whole bunch of wealth in your life. I've made so many crypto millionaires in my life, and it's something that just takes one idea and kind of to get it, that aha, and then it can be life changing from there.
Tell me about the investing side of things in terms of a business, because you're doing you're doing things, yes, investing
Yes.
in crypto and the like, and Bitcoin. But what about the business side? What makes you want to invest in particular businesses? You talked about e-commerce and things at the moment. Why are they the obvious places to go for you?
Yeah, so I've primarily, when I was working as a growth hacker, so a growth hacker is an individual who scales companies and then does a profit share win-win with the business owner. So if I make a gain, then we're sharing that. So that was kind of like how I ended up working in multiple businesses and getting shares in businesses. But and then some of those, like the travel companies, then became an owner. That's kind of like how that piece has happened. But then, as far as investing in businesses, whether it's with through my company or through my personal or through my superannuation, that has just really been about that whole winning, like knowing where the technology was going. So, you spoke about e-commerce. Shopify is a great example. They're clear winner. Amazon is another example, clear winner. So just that's kind of the lens that I look at everything is this the category winner, number one or two in its category? Yes, then I'll put money in it and then I'll ride it long term. Because when the dot-com boom happened, I knew Facebook was a winner. I knew Google was a winner. I knew Amazon was a winner, but I wasn't smart enough back then to know, yes, I'm using these tools and they're amazing, but to buy their stock and hold them over a 10-year or 12-year period, I'd be a lot wealthier now if I had that wisdom. But I didn't. But now that I'm 50 and I've been through that cycle, the same thing's happening all over again. History's repeating itself. But right now it's happening with AI, so technology that's AI enabled, and it's also happening with blockchain. So by just learning those two areas for business owners, that's really the greatest wealth unlock that I can see, because business is getting harder. The cost of traffic, the more competition, business is getting harder, but investing is getting easier. So that's why I do a combination of both, but dual black belt. Get your black belt in business, get your black belt in investing.
I love that, because it's such a, you're absolutely right. It is getting harder and harder in business, and particularly in a time when you talk about AI, which is supposed to make life easier, just creates another layer of complexity for business. And the you know, most businesses now, there's an expectation of the response rates being quicker, and the level of sophistication of which you're supposed to be able to respond is greater, because the AI that's come into the equation has become, okay, well, everyone's just using an AI, which is not actually the case that everyone is, but that is a lot of the expectation and onus that's been put on businesses. So how do you, in the businesses that you talk to and along the way, how do you manage that kind of expectation around AI and where they should be in terms of investing in their own business in those kinds of tools?
Yeah, we are finding it to be a great unlock and a significant advantage with technology. If you, as it comes along, You can either lean into it, meaning like embrace it, and maybe I don't understand everything about it, but I'm going to learn it. Or you can do like what you were talking about with the Bitcoin and the blockchain, where people are like, "Hey, it's just too hard for me. I don't get it. I don't understand it." History has proven that effectively those that lean in and say, "You know what? I don't know it, but I'm going to learn it." Those people generally win. The risk with AI is if you don't learn it, if you don't embrace it, you run the risk of being rolled by it, like having your job replaced or your business being irrelevant, that kind of thing. If I look at like we do with our travel companies, all our ads now, all the images are created by AI. So like all the banner ads for Facebook, etc. A lot of the video ads are created by Google VO3, which is a video ad. Well, it's a video content tool, and we use that for video ads. ChatGPT we use for everything from like writing sales copy to how do we connect this to that, just like asking it questions. So we use that like really really on a day-to-day basis. And then even our developers now are using tools that help them to write their code and basically get their jobs done quicker. Even my executive assistant, I unfortunately I had to put her off recently because there was no more work anymore. And this came about because of a $12 a month AI tool. There's an AI tool called Whisperflow, and you just hold down the function key on your computer and you talk to your computer and it turns it into type text for you. Whisperflow is spelled WISPR and then flow. It is a very, very big deal because you spend hours a day typing, and then if you just change that habit and you just hold down that function key, you talk to it, you let it up, and it types automatically for you. And it's got AI in it, it understands your intent. So if I held that function key down and I said, "Hey Anthony, how are you to meet on Tuesday at 3? No, let's make it 4 o'clock." It'll write a message, "Hey Anthony, how are you for meet at Tuesday at 4?" Like it'll really figure out what you wanted to say. So just by doing all that, I wasn't drowning in emails and SMS and all this kind of stuff anymore. And so I said, "I'm happy for you to stick around, but there's no work anymore," sort of thing. And basically, that one AI tool effectively got rid of my executive assistant. So it is very, very powerful if you embrace it. And that concept of lean in, I think leaning out and saying this is not for me is a very, very dangerous game, I believe.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing is it's leaning in and knowing where to go. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of businesses is where do you start? And you've given a great tool there as a bit of advice on something that people can use. And I think people get swallowed up by this, ChatGPT's got the name, right? That's the one that everyone talks about, but it's not necessarily the be all and end all, and it's not necessarily where you should start or even go depending on what your business is.
Yeah, we do use it more than anything else, I would say, ChatGPT, but obviously Google's got Gemini and there's Claude and there's other ones out there. So it doesn't have to be that one, but it is pretty amazing for $20 a month. The way I look at it is it's effectively like an assistant that I can ask, a very, very intelligent assistant that I can ask anything to. And I think learning how to prompt it better is an area that's like worth spending time at because it's that whole GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't ask it good questions, you may not get good answers out of it. So sort of being able to, yeah, to use that. I think on the image side is amazing. I know you use Descript, which is a video editor. That's very smart, like AI, where you're just modifying words in the transcript and trimming things out. So it really is a game changer if you get this area right. And I think everything starts with education, whether it's the business growth stuff you and I have talked about, whether it's the blockchain, the AI technologies. It all really starts with one, that desire to, hey, I have a mindset of a top 1%. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going into this, except for sport, I'm absolutely rubbish, right? but if it's not sport, if it's like these intellectual sports, I like, okay, how am I going to be top 1% at this? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to become? And I think that mindset and emotional intelligence, just to the resilience, just keep going, keep learning, keep trying and testing different things out. I've tried a heap of different AI tools, and a lot of them I've got rid of, and then I've just come back to a core set. So just embrace it, but really starting with the education, keeping going on that.
Changing tact a little bit. The Collective. Talk to me about that. I mean, I love the name in itself because that whole, you know, idea of bringing everyone together and that consciousness of doing that. Talk to me about what it is and the logic behind it all.
Sure thing. So after the agency, we morphed to a coaching model, and we've been doing it for 8 years, and it's really, really worked well. So you're 100% spot on with the name, the collective, because the idea was that the collective intelligence of the group is greater than any one individual. So when we do masterminds and we get together like 4 times a year, everyone will get up the front at one stage and they'll have the hot seat and they'll get up and explain a problem or an opportunity in their business. And sometimes they were going to go down one path, but then the rest of the group says, hey, it's maybe not so great. Have you thought about this? So sometimes what comes out of it is like really great options for a different way to go, or they just avoid going down the wrong rabbit hole, which I think we've all done. Do you know what I mean? Which is a 6 month rabbit hole. And then before you have to say, hey, next and move on. But the other thing is just wicked fun. So hanging out with, like, you're fun to hang out with because you and I have similar mindsets. Like we think the same. We both want to see people succeed, but not everyone in society wants to see other people succeed. So it's hanging out with other positive, like-minded people. And then we basically look at businesses as far as, okay, well, there's a chain of conversion. So I'm a growth hacker. So for businesses in there, I'd look at their business and say, okay, well, how can we get more traffic? How can we get more awareness? How can we then get more leads? How can then we get more? And then what I call the profit triad, 3 things. How can we get more customers? How can we get them spending more? And then how can we get them coming back again? If you can get those couple of things happening together, then that really, really grows the business. And then how can we drive more profit? And often profit isn't necessarily about growing more. Profit is often about how can we reduce our expenses, because if we earn $1,000, that's not $1,000 profit, because we might have cost of goods and taxes and all that. So we might only really make $300 or $400 on that $1,000. But if we can reduce our expenses by 1,000, that's $1,000 worth of profit. So we kind of look at all that and then really focus on cash flow. And then from that B plus I, how do we then grow the investing? And then work on how do we inject more fun into it. So building that amazing life resume. So like in 2 weeks, a couple of weeks time, I'm off to Queenstown and we're going to do a business mastermind there, but we're also going snowboarding together, that kind of thing. So, and ideally, if you can do some of these fun things using the business, then that's even better, like more tax friendly, so to speak. So how do you build an amazing life resume with a couple of really cool things through the year? But not just that, really, like through your week or through your month, what are fun things? Like I literally schedule surfing and free time in my diary. I manage my time in such a way, and this is what I teach people to do, so that you're not doing meetings in the morning. You're keeping that time so that you can work on what's the most important thing you need to do in the mornings, and then you help people and that kind of stuff and work in the business in the afternoon. I try to keep my Thursdays and my Fridays free. I teach other people how to do this as well, so that I think everyone, you've met a business owner where they're just always busy, always swamped. But if you look at my diary, it's not really that bad. Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoons, I've got things on, but the rest of it's kind of clear. And then I've taught my team how, and I teach others as well, how to do like this self-managing team. So I use Monday, the project management. It's a visual like project management tool, and anyone can project manage with it, because green equals done, yellow means it's in progress, and then red means there's a problem, and then you have comments beside it, and we give it priority orders. And then with the teams, I've taught them how to do that. But with all my teams, I meet with them at the start of the week, and then I meet with them later in the week. And if you go back to school, if your homework was due tomorrow, you've got to scramble and get it done, right? So by meeting with the team at the start of the week, and everyone knows their priorities, and they let me know if there's any questions, they know come Thursday that we're going through that exact same list again. So they don't want me to get up to their thing and they haven't done anything on it. So the whole, like one of my business partners said, Greg, you're the only guy I know who runs multiple companies and doesn't do anything. But it's not about that I don't do much myself. I'm just very good at teaching people and getting people to do what they need to do and empowering them so that they hit their deadlines. And don't get me wrong, if there's a lot of things due, we'll meet more regularly. But as a general rule, Monday and Thursday and everything just gets done without me having to get involved, which is awesome. And so I help people to get their life back, with that.
Which means you have more time to record podcasts with people like me,
Absolutely.
which is the fun stuff.
It is, yeah. I do enjoy that, and also just get out and about and like health. I've been really like focusing on the biohacking and the health because I think health is wealth, and so if we're all work, that's not great for us. So what can we do to look after the body? How can we slow down the aging? How can we keep lean? All these kinds of things. So spend time on some of those things as well.
Couple last things just to wrap things up. One of those is because I'm fascinated because what you're doing is effectively a lot of mentoring of people.
Yeah.
Who do you classify then as your mentors?
Over the years, I've had many. I was traveling from Australia to the US 4 times a year for like 5 years, and primarily it was in the marketing space initially, where I was going to business and marketing masterminds. And while I still am in one or two of those, now I spend more of my time on the investing side. So on the business side, I had coaches like Ryan Dice and Frank Kern. So these are famous marketers. Ezra Firestone was my coach. I was in Russell Brunson's mastermind, Perry Belcher. So all these kinds of big marketers in Australia. Mal Emery was another one for me. So I've always like invested in that side. And then now it's probably more online where I'm learning the investing. I think if you know the right areas to go, then YouTube is amazing. I learn a lot from YouTube now, and I learn a lot from TikTok actually as well by training the algorithm so that it's not just showing me girls dancing. It's now showing me, like I still do enjoy that. Don't get me wrong, like, but yeah, I want to feed the brain as well. So using it as a business tool where you teach it, hey, I'm interested in AI and a whole bunch of AI coaches. I'm interested in blockchain. I'm interested in, so by what searches you give it and what likes, and like you can train the algorithm so it just gets better and better and better. So I learn a lot that way.
I think that is such an important tip, by the way, to people, that you do have to train the algorithm.
Yeah.
And I was only commenting to someone this morning because of some stuff that I've been doing. I looked at my feed on one particular platform and went, it's just rubbish. The people that I'm getting stuff in from are not of value to me, and I know why it's happened and how it's happened. But actually, then untraining that and training what you want to do, it requires a bit of effort. And I think that's one of the points too, that we often just sit there and feel like we're at the mercy of these social media platforms. But you can train them to start finding what you need to be seeing.
Agreed, because I think social media is morphing now to what's called interest media. If you think about your feeds, often it's not really, it used to start off about, hey, what are your friends doing and that kind of thing. You still see a little bit of that, but not as much as you see. For example, you're really into podcasting and broadcast and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see a lot of folks that are exactly in your market, whereas I'll see a lot of folks that are exactly in my market because that's what you're interested in. The good thing about it is, like, for people who then want to be on this content creation side, there's never been a better time to put your message in front of the exact right target market, because AI makes it easier to edit and to get your message in front of the exact right people with these interest media. And the way that the world is going with the transition on search, so historically it's been Google search, and then now it is changing more to ChatGPT and other large language models. They're recommendation engines. So it's not what you know anymore, it's what you show. So if you're not putting your expertise out into the world, you're not going to be recommended by these large language models like ChatGPT. So I do think if you're not doing any kind of amplifying your message, you do run the risk of decline in the future.
Wow, there's so much we could explore further, but we're running out of time. I just want to ask you one final
Sure.
question that I like to ask all my guests, which is, what's the aha moment that people have when they come to work with you that you wish more people knew they were going to have?
The aha moment really is that it's a sliding door. So they don't know, they're coming in for one thing and then their life changes in so many different directions. I think my real superpower is helping people get their life back and transition business owners to transition into high net worth individuals. I don't think there's enough people teaching business owners, hey, you've done all this work, you're good at that. Keep doing that. Let's rev it up. But how do we now make you a high net worth individual so that when you get to retirement or when you want to slow down, you've got the money there to make those amazing choices in life. That's what I believe has been the ahas, and it's been really cool, to be honest. I leave a massive trail of change behind me in a good way. It impacted a lot of people's lives, and it's been very rewarding because now I'm not so much just about what can I get out of it. I needed that when I was young and I was hustling and I was broke. I think we all started off that way. Like, I'm sure you've had times in your career as well where things are flying and other times when it's really not going so well. But yeah, now I'm coming out the other side of things. So it's great to be able to have a positive impact on other people and really give them freedom by showing them how to get wealthy. So that's been pretty cool.
Fantastic. I love it. And you've shared so much. There are so many little tips and things that people will have got through this episode. So I really appreciate it. We, of course, will include in the show notes all the information on how to get in touch with you. But Greg, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthony. I really enjoyed this. You're a great host and awesome questioner.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening in, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode of Biz Bites for Thought Leaders.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Biz Bites. We hope you enjoyed the program. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Biz Bites is proudly brought to you by Podcasts Done For You, the service where we will deliver a podcast for you and expose your brilliance to the world. Contact us today for more information. Details in the show notes. We look forward to your company next time on Biz Bites.